Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Sam B right here with the Tune Up Show. So check it out, right? Now, if you living under a rock, right, you may not have heard about what Whoopi Goldberg said on The View. Now, normally and personally, I don't watch stuff like that. I don't tune my mind to simple-minded people like the people on The View, the people that promote The View. They're definitely just talking out the side of their necks, okay, with more than 90% of their content. But this particular one with Whoopi Goldberg and what she said tend to, it definitely struck a few nerves. A lot, actually, well, it struck the wrong nerves. And we all know in this society, there's two classes of people you cannot offend by any means. That is the Jewish people and the LGBT community. You cannot ever offend these people at whatever cost. All right? Now, what she did, she obviously offended the Jewish people with her rhetoric. All right? I'm not going to try to say what she said. We're just going to, we're going to hear it for ourselves. That way I'm not, taking anything out of context.
Whoopi Goldberg has been suspended for 2 weeks from The View following this controversial comment she made on Monday's episode.
And let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. It's about man's inhumanity to man.
E.T. can confirm that the 66-year-old co-host will not appear on the daytime talk show effective immediately. In light of her suspension, Kim Godwin, president of ABC News, released this statement, quote, "I am suspending Whoopi Goldberg for 2 weeks for her wrong and hurtful comments. While Whoopi has apologized, I've asked her to take time to reflect and learn about the impact of her comments." Ahead of releasing that statement, Godwin sent a note to ABC staffers regarding Whoopi's comments that read in part, quote, "The culture at ABC News is one that is driven, kind, inclusive, respectful, and transparent. Whoopi's comments do not align with those values."
The truth of the matter is, we are all adults and we know how to behave at a table.
Just hours before ABC announced the suspension, former The View co-host Meghan McCain spoke out against how the show handled Whoopi's comments. In a column for DailyMail.com, Meghan wrote, quote, "Instead of half apologies and bringing in experts in the anti-Semitism space, maybe dedicate an entire Hot Topic segment to discussing why what was said was so deeply offensive and dangerous." Meghan added that in the world of media, there are people who will never face the same ramifications and repercussions that others will. Writing, quote, "There's a double, triple, and even..."
All right, well, I'm not going to let that play on because apparently I've been getting a hell of a lot of strikes lately, so I'm just going to not play too much of that. But you get the drift, what happened here. So when it comes to Whoopi Goldberg and what she said that it had nothing to do with race, all right? It had everything to do with man's inhumane to other men, their fellow man. I myself, I had to be inclined to believe her because of my own personal research that I've done. The Jewish people are, in fact, their corporate designated race will be white Caucasian. Just like Germans, Nazis, their corporate designation will be white Caucasian. Their corporate designated race is white Caucasian. When you go fill out an application, they're not asking if you're Irish. They're not asking if you're German. They're not asking if you're Jewish. They're not asking if you're Italian. They're asking 6 things: Hispanic, Asian Pacific, Black, Hispanic, or white. That's it. So those are your designated corporate races. Okay? Now, to me, I'm thinking that she was talking about it from a whole other perspective. Most likely from the dim-witted black perspective. Because I'm pretty sure she didn't realize that with what she said, she inadvertently ended racism. Because see, racism is skin deep. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Jim Crow laws. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had blacks only or white only, right? So if we're doing it by races, then yes, it was literally white people doing really, really wrong stuff to other white people. Now, if you want to get down to ideology, if you want to get down to religion and faith-based, then yes, that will be considered hate crimes. Okay? It wouldn't be considered racial attacks. This is the biggest problem with liberal media and liberal ideology. They always move the goalposts. You got to watch out for this. Okay? Because see, Jewish people, I'm gonna give you certain classes of people that never assimilated to their corporate designations. Okay? These are people that just aren't in America. They are Jewish people. They never assimilated to American culture or to the designated corporate, to the corporate designation standards. They never assimilated. These are Jewish people, Asian people, Chinese people, okay, Amish people, and a lot of them are of the German and Jewish, ideology and faith. Because see, which one is it? Liberal media, because see, you can't claim race when it's clearly a case of a hate crime. You can't claim it's a hate crime when there's clearly a case of racism. Okay, you can't have it both ways because you got white women walking around with curly hair talking about they're black. Okay, so you can't keep claiming things when it's benefit to you. So is Whoopi Goldberg right or is she wrong for saying what she says? Because see, what she said, she pretty much summed up racism as only being skin deep, which it is. Okay? You have light skin, you have fair skin Hispanics that are racist towards darker skin Hispanics. You got fair skin Asian people that are racist towards dark-skinned Asian people. Okay? And yes, there are dark-skinned Asian people. Okay? And it goes all over. And it's not just you gotta keep, racism is literally skin deep. All right? That's why, and I'm only talking from a United States, from an American corporate designation standpoint. All right, that's what I'm talking about because we're in America right now. So let's talk about what America is all about. Okay, America is all about putting people where they feel like they can fit. Okay, now you want to get down to ideology, faith-driven, faith-based. Okay, then we got a whole new conversation. All right, and so what I wanted to say was, I believe that Whoopi Goldberg and what she said, it got me thinking. I was like, well, you know what? Because I think someone else said something on there, and they said that, well, you know what? To finish up her rhetoric, hold on, let me see if she said anything else.
Quadruple standard if to Whoopi's comments.
And if you take a white kid, what happened to his friend who happens to be black?
It all started when the panel was discussing a Tennessee school district's decision to ban the graphic novel Mouse, which is about the Holocaust.
Personally, I'm shocked because, given the story of Mouse.
Anti-Semitism space, maybe here is a time
His friend who happens to be
the panel was discussing a Tennessee school district's decision to ban the graphic novel Mouse, which is about the Holocaust.
Personally, I'm shocked because, given the story of Mouse, I'm surprised that that's what made you uncomfortable. The fact that there was some nudity and I mean, it's about the Holocaust, the killing of 6 million people, but that didn't bother you. But the naked.
I'm not sure that they don't use the naked part as a kind of a canard to throw you off from the fact that they don't like history that makes white people look bad.
But as Whoopi continues debating the topic,
and that Joy Bearhart, she's I'm gonna do some more research on this woman because she doesn't really have a clean past either, or a clean present. She's always taking someone to task, and from the stuff she's been saying in the past. Like I said, I listen out for this show, but a lot of things Joy Behart has been saying in the past about most likely men. I'm gonna do a whole other segment on her because she's another one that needs to be canceled. But let's continue.
Topic, some of her co-hosts don't seem to agree.
Then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No. It's not about race.
No, it's about a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about.
But it's about white supremacy.
The Oscar winner immediately received a backlash on social media, leading her to apologize on Twitter Monday evening.
You see when she said it's about white supremacy. So that was their way of trying to reel her back in, like, hey, let's keep this liberal trend going. You're about to get off. You're getting off at the wrong stop, Whoopi. Get back on the train. So they had to go back to white supremacy. But see, when you're dealing with white supremacy, who are you talking about? You're talking about fair-skinned people, okay? Dominating other fair-skinned people. So if you go back to the European and United States and an American corporate designation standard, then yes, it wasn't about a racial thing. It was literally white people doing inhumane things to other white people. Now, you want to get down to the nitty gritty of it, okay? You want to get down to the nitty gritty of it. That's what it's about. Because see, now you have to talk about the faith base. You have to talk about what it's really all about. And I'm going to do another segment on this, but I just want to throw this out here, that even in the name Jewish itself, when you come across a Jewish person, the word ish is a suffix, okay, and it means something like, not of the original. All right, that's what ish means. So when someone says like, oh hey, what time you coming to dinner, bro? Like, I'll be there around 12-ish, So it's not really 12, but he'll be there around 12. He'll be there something like 12. You see what I'm saying? See, the liberal media, their problem is they want to move like I said, they want to move the goalposts whenever it's benefit to them. They want to talk about race when it's benefiting to them. When they want to claim, oh, that's white supremacist. Okay, but you're white too. No. I'm not German. I'm Jewish. You see how it is? That's how the goalpost is moved. So I would say, like, I think Whoopi, she did a what they call a Freudian slip when she said that, because she said it with authority, where she thought that they were going to, they were going to be on, they're going to be on her side about it. The way she said it, the way her connotation, the way she said it with real authority, like, hey, this is what I believe. So Whoopi Goldberg, she may know a whole lot more than she puts on for the show, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't use this 2 weeks to try to reprogram her and say, hey, you want to live till you're 70. All right, well, you need to get right. Get back on the train.
Whoopi writes, quote, "On today's show, I said the Holocaust is not about race, but about man's inhumanity to man. I should have said it is about both." As Jonathan Greenblatt from the Anti-Defamation...
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You knew exactly what you were saying, and there was nothing wrong with what you said. It was nothing wrong, because if you're speaking from an American corporate designated standpoint, then yeah, and which existed back then, it did existed, because let me tell you something. If you line up 10 white people, 10 white men of all different backgrounds, nationalities, whatever, if they're all fair skinned and it's all skin deep, you wouldn't be able to pick out a Jewish person. You wouldn't be able to pick out an Italian. You wouldn't be able to pick out any Irish man. You wouldn't be able to pick them out. If you were to literally put 10 white men in a room with brown eyes, black hair, of all different nationalities, you would not know who they were. Okay? That's just facts. You wouldn't know. So that's why racism is only skin deep. Because you have to go to a whole new conversation. But see, this is what it is. This is how they move that goalpost.
Nation League shared, quote, "The Holocaust was about the Nazi systemic annihilation of the Jewish people, who they deemed to be an inferior race. I stand corrected." The actress adds that Jewish people around the world have always had her...
Oh, and just for a footnote, majority of white people all come from the same race. They come from the Caucasoid people, mountain people. All right? And if you want to know more about that, you should read up on a book called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler. Now, I try to look on Amazon. They don't have any copies left. I think someone has like the last copy, and they may have just destroyed it all. But in that book entails exactly where the white race came from, the Caucasian race. Most likely people that were from Northern Europe in the Caucasoid Mountains. These people, they were embodied with black hair, red hair, and they walked on all fours. All right. Now, some of them, when they ran into the black nobility during that time in Europe, the black nobility, they, what you would say, they domesticated them. And when that happened, then they started walking upright. The Caucasoid mountain people, they were Caucasian people, skin color wise, and they were what you would call, if you remember Game of Thrones, and they call those people the wildlings, that's who they were. Those were the original Caucasian people, you know. But see, these Caucasian archaeologists and historians, they will have you to believe that they were just born normal. They were just born like that. But everybody comes from somewhere, okay? And the fact that the liberal media will never, ever, they will never release real true findings of the Caucasian man, because this is the Caucasian man's kingdom. So it's literally whatever he says go. All right?
Support, and that will never change. Quote, "I'm sorry for the hurt I have caused." E.T. spoke to the EGOT winner ahead of The View's 25th season, and she said this about the panelists having different opinions.
Doing what we're supposed to be doing. This is our gig, and this is, you know, our.
I think she knew right then that she was going to get suspended. They probably told her on a little ear thing like, "Hey, when you done during commercial break, come up to the office."
Our gift from the world, because not everybody gets to have an opinion. Not everybody gets to say, this is what I think.
Well, that's how that goes. But But the whole thing is about this, and I'm going to share something else with you guys too as well. So that's that. That was my take on what Whoopi said. Everything I say can be looked up, talked about, whatever. I'm gonna do another segment on this anti-Semitic stuff, because the real Semite people were of color. All right, the original Arabs, the original people in the Middle Eastern, the Africans that was there. To be a Semite, you had to be a person of color to begin with. So the fact that a Jewish person can call someone anti-Semitic, well, that's just an oxymoron, honestly. You know, that's just what it is. But I'm going to, because see what someone said about white supremacy and what she said about white people doing inhumane things to other white people, that was pretty much it. And I came across this interview with George Soros.
Of all the financial...
All right. This probably actually be a long video. But I came across this video about George Soros. And I believe when I first heard about this interview, I never knew about this interview, but the first time I heard about it was from Alex Jones. And he was on the Joe Rogan show. This was about 2, maybe 3 years ago. And he said what George Soros said, that when he was 14 years old, he was a Jewish man. He was 14 years old, and him and his father, they posed as Christians. And they helped gather up all the other Jews and sent them into the concentration camps. And they did it for a financial gain. Now, he told that to Joe Rogan, and I guess they kind of never minded or whatever they did. I'm not sure what they did. But I guess Jamie is his name. I guess he didn't try to go look for it because maybe on the inside, all three of them know that it's there. But I guess at that time, because a lot of changes in the last 2 or 3 years, especially with Joe Rogan, now that he realizes that the liberal media is not on his side. But it's just another gem I wanted to drop about George Soros and how what Whoopi Goldberg said, white people doing inhumane things to white people. Well, this is exactly what it is. This proves her case. Because, like I said, you wouldn't be able to know if you take 5 white men, you take 10 white men, brown hair, black eyes, brown eyes, black hair, line them up, you would never know who they were, what nationality, what God they worship, or whatever. You would just never know. All right, and this is some saying.
Titans and philanthropists of the 20th century. And it's all over. He called you a criminal. Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, where George Soros was born, what I do. To understand the complexities and contradictions in his personality, you have to go back to the very beginning, to Budapest, where George Soros was born 68 years ago to parents who were wealthy, well-educated, and Jewish. When the Nazis occupied Budapest in 1944, George Soros' father was a successful lawyer. He lived on an island in the Danube and liked to commute to work in a rowboat. But knowing there were problems ahead for the Jews, he decided to split his family up. He bought them forged papers, and he bribed a government official to take 14-year-old George Soros in and swear that he was his Christian godson. But survival carried a heavy price tag. While hundreds of thousands of Hungarian Jews were being shipped off to the death camps, George Soros accompanied his phony godfather on his appointed rounds, confiscating property from the Jews. These are pictures from 1944 of what happened to George Soros's friends and neighbors. You're a Hungarian Jew who escaped the Holocaust by posing as a Christian.
Right.
And you watched lots of people get shipped off to the death camps.
There's the Christian scapegoat again. You see how they're setting up the narrative for Christians to be evil people? Now I wouldn't be surprised. If they do or don't, I don't know. Within the next 5, maybe 10 years, or if George Soros is still alive, or if this society is still around. Because let me tell you something, this society is still circling the drain. So I wouldn't be surprised that they're setting up the Christian narrative for Christian people to be evil. Because for him to put God's name on what he did, that's pretty despicable.
Right. I was 14 years old. And I would say that that's when my character was made.
In what way?
That one should think ahead, one should understand and anticipate events, and one is threatened. It was a tremendous threat of evil. I mean, it was a very personal experience of evil.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right. Yes.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. Maybe as a child you don't see the connection, but it created no problem at all.
No feeling of guilt.
No.
For example, that I'm Jewish, and here I am watching these people go. I could just as easily be there. I should be there. None of that.
Well, of course, I could be on the other side, or I could be the one from whom the thing is being taken away. But there was no sense that I shouldn't be there, because that was... well, actually, funny way, it's just like in markets, that if I weren't there, of course I wasn't doing it, but somebody else would be taking it away anyhow. In other words, whether I was there or not, I was only a spectator, the property was being taken away. So I had no role in taking away that property. So I had no sense of guilt.
Are you...
But you reap the benefits of it. So that's just the same thing as stealing. You know, it's like the mafia wives. You know, they may not have been the one taking the properties of blacks and other Italians and other Caucasian people at that time, and snitching and lying on people just so they can save their own skin. Those mafia wives, they may not have been the ones doing it, but they knew what was going on. They had every notion that this wasn't the right thing to be doing, but they were reaping the benefits. And George Soros is one of those people. He reaped the benefits, and mind you, this man, George Soros, he is a heavy investor in the Black Lives Matter movement. He is a heavy investor in the LGBT community political movement. This guy dumps millions and millions of dollars into these organizations to keep people separate. And you ask yourself, well, how is that happening, Sam B? Well, I'll tell you why it's happening, how it's happening. Because just look around. Black Lives Matter didn't do anything for the black community. If anything, it made more poorer black neighborhoods more poor, way less fortunate than they started off with. It's all about separation. LGBT community, for one, they're a very separate, protected class within the United Kingdom and America. All right, that's separation from people. You know, we're talking about grown people here, grown men and women that want to do what they want to do, but you are expected to go along with the program because people like them and George Soros says so. Now, this is the same guy that just got finished admitting that he had no guilt. He didn't feel sorry at all, okay, because he wasn't the one doing it, okay, personally. But you were still reaping the benefits. And at some time, you knew you were selling out your own people. You're just as much of a scumbag as the people that were actually doing the stuff to your people. These are your people. These are your Jewish people. Okay? So I just wanted to share that. And, just to let it be known that, hey, I think Whoopi Goldberg was right. There was no reason for her to, backtrack it or anything. I think she was right. I think she said it on the wrong platform. I think that. I think she said it on the wrong platform. But, this is just what needs to be said, what needs to be done. Because we all need to start listening. Not with our heart, but with our mind and our ears. We have to really start listening to what people are saying and then watching their actions behind it. Because when we stop listening and we stop watching, that's when we lose. That's when people like George Soros, who spent all his life benefiting off of people losing their lives, their homes, and their wages. He betted off of that. All right, just look up that old interview. I think it was back in 1994, 93. It has to be at least over 20 years ago. 25, it's about 25 years ago. All right. But, hey, don't take it from me. Do your own research. Figure it out. I'm Sam B. This is Tune Up Show. And that's all I got to say. Peace.